Welcome to AI Horror Stories. Prepare to be chilled. Go subscribe now and hit that notification bell for daily doses of AI-generated fright. Warning, this story contains sensitive content that some may find offensive or disturbing. First story is Hello Kitty. The Hello Kitty murder case took place in Hong Kong in the spring of 1999, when a nightclub hostess was abducted in Citrus Road, Liu Estate and tortured in an apartment in Tsim Sha Tsui after stealing a wallet owned by one of her frequent customers. Fan Man-yi, 23 years old, was held captive by 3 men and 1 girl before dying on April 15, 1999. Her body was decapitated and her skull placed inside of a Hello Kitty plush, which gave the name for the murder case. The apartment where Fan Man-yi was tortured and murdered. The unwrapping of the Hello Kitty case actually started when a 14-year-old girl reached the Hong Kong police station in May 1999. The distressed Giri, who wasn't accompanied by any guardian, informed the police that she was being tormented by the ghost of a woman. The police did not believe when she said that the spirit of a young woman who had blood marks all over her body has been haunting her for the past several weeks. However, when she further revealed that the ghost was that of a woman she'd had a hand in the killing, the police were horrified and understood the actual reason for the girl's visit to the police station. The girl revealed that she has been part of the torture and murder of a young girl whose ghost would be haunting her until she confesses her role in the crime to the police. There were other men who actually tortured and killed the young girl, and this 14-year girl was just a part of that crime. She was the youngest of all and who unknowingly joined them in their crime. On the confession of the teenage girl, the police followed her back to a flat in the city's rundown Kowloon district. What they found on reaching there was really shocking. They found a Hello Kitty mermaid doll which had the decapitated skull of a woman inside. Born in 1975, Fan Man-yi was abandoned by her family as a child, resulting in her being raised in an all-girls orphanage. When she turned 15, she was told to leave the orphanage because they had an age restriction. Becoming homeless and addicted to drugs, Fan was forced into street prostitution until the age of 21, when she began working at a brothel. Fan eventually married one of her clients, a fellow drug addict, in 1996. She gave birth to their son 2 years later, not long before her murder. Fan's husband was described as abusive, and neighbors would report being woken up by sounds of the couple's fights and the child screaming and crying from their apartment. Upon the pregnancy and then birth of her son, Fan decided to turn her life around in order to protect her son and provide him a safer life. She quit drugs and prostitution, got a job as a hostess at a brothel, and eventually left her violent husband shortly before her murder. Due to these sacrifices, she had a much lower income and struggled to support herself and her family. Chan Man-lok, 34-year-old triad member, was one of Fan's regular clients at the brothel. In early 1999, Fan stole Chan's wallet, which contained about HK 4,000, roughly $500. When Chan realized what had happened, he demanded Fan to return the money in addition to a fee of HK 10,000. Roughly $1,000. Although Fan immediately returned the stolen money, she needed additional time to secure the additional fee. On March 17, 1999, Fan was abducted by 3 men and 1 girl in Block 90 Citrus Road, Fuyu section of Liu Estate. Chan, his grooming victim Lau Mingfang, pseudonym Ah Fang, 14 years old. The group took Fan to an apartment at number 31 Granville Road, Tsim Sha Tsui, where they imprisoned her for a month. Initially, Chan had intended to make money off of Fan by pimping her out to other men. During her imprisonment, she was tortured and raped. According to one source, she was beaten with metal bars, sometimes while being strung up and used as a punching bag. On one occasion, Fan was kicked in the head around 50 times. Spices were rubbed into Fan's wounds, her legs and feet were burned with candle wax and hot plastic, specifically so she couldn't walk. She was forced to consume human feces and urine, and she was forced to smile and say she enjoyed the beatings. If she refused, they subjected her to even harsher torture. This treatment eventually led to traumatic shock and ultimately death. Fan succumbed to her wounds on April 15, 1999. Some sources claim that she died while her captors were out, while others say she died overnight. Upon returning Fan's body, her captors dismembered and boiled the remains. Her skull was sewed inside of a Hello Kitty mermaid doll while the rest of the body was discarded. Only her skull, one tooth, and some internal organs were recovered in a plastic bag, after Lau led police to the scene on May 24. When they were finally caught by the police, they narrated their own version that they were simply running a brothel with Fan Manyi and it was a mutual agreement. They said that Fan Manyi was a drug addict and she died because of a drug overdose. They also said that they did all this with her body as they were scared of being caught. After a trial which lasted over 6 weeks, the 3 men were convicted of manslaughter, as the jury ruled the remains were not sufficient to show whether Fan was murdered or died from a drug overdose. While the jury could not rule that the men intended to kill Fan, they did determine that she had died as a result of their abuse. Lau testified at the trial in exchange for immunity. Justice Peter Nguyen, who sentenced the trio to life in prison with the possibility of parole, stated, "Never in Hong Kong in recent years has a court heard of such cruelty, depravity, callousness, brutality, violence, and viciousness." Psychiatric reports described the 3 as remorseless. Fan succumbed to her wounds on April 15, 1999. Some sources claim that she died while her captors were out, while others say she died overnight. Upon returning Fan's body, her captors dismembered and boiled the remains. Her skull was sewed inside of a Hello Kitty mermaid doll while the rest of the body was discarded. Only her skull, one tooth, and some internal organs were recovered in a plastic bag, after Lau led police to the scene on May 24. When they were finally caught by the police, they narrated their own version that they were simply running a brothel with Fan Manyi and it was a mutual agreement. They said that Fan Manyi was a drug addict and she died because of a drug overdose. They also said that they did all this with her body as they were scared of being caught. After a trial which lasted over 6 weeks, the 3 men were convicted of manslaughter, as the jury ruled the remains were not sufficient to show whether Fan was murdered or died from a drug overdose. While the jury could not rule that the men intended to kill Fan, they did determine that she had died as a result of their abuse. Lau testified at the trial in exchange for immunity. Justice Peter Nguyen, who sentenced the trio to life in prison with the possibility of parole, stated, "Never in Hong Kong in recent years has a court heard of such cruelty, depravity, callousness, brutality, violence, and viciousness." Psychiatric reports described the 3 as remorseless. Second story is the clown doll. The clown doll is a scary urban legend about a little girl named Molly whose parents buy her a new doll as a present. There was a 7-year-old girl named Molly who absolutely loved dolls. She collected every doll she could and displayed them on a shelf in her bedroom. She wasn't doing very well in school, so her parents told her that if her grades improved, they would buy her a new doll as a reward. Molly was motivated to try her best and, a few weeks later, her report card arrived from school. She had studied so hard that she managed to get straight A's. Her mother and father were delighted and decided to make good on their promise. The next morning, Molly's mother brought her to the mall so they could go shopping for her gift. As they passed by the window of a second-hand toy store, the little girl grabbed her mother's arm and asked if they could go inside. When they entered the shop, the woman told her daughter she could choose any item she wanted, no matter what price it was. Molly wandered up and down the aisles of the dusty old toy shop until she eventually came to the doll section. On the top shelf, partially obscured by dusty old boxes, was something that immediately caught her eye. It was a clown doll with red hair, yellow eyes, and a big red nose. The clown's wizened face was twisted into a malicious grimace and its teeth were sharp and jagged. One of the clown's gnarled hands was clenched in a fist, but the other was holding up 3 fingers. Molly turned to her mother and squealed, "Mommy, this is the one I want." "Are you sure?" asked her mother incredulously. "But, it's so ugly and creepy." The little girl nodded excitedly. I want it, I want it, I want it. Well, all right then, said her mother as she took the clown doll down from the shelf and brought it over to the counter. The owner of the store took one look at the doll and said, I'm sorry, madam. That clown doll is not for sale. What? Why not? Exclaimed the surprised woman. The owner refused to answer. The mother looked down and saw her daughter's eyes welling up with tears. She began arguing with the shopkeeper and offered him more and more money, but he kept refusing. Eventually, she said, I'll pay you $100, and held out the money in front of him. The owner's eyes grew wide. He hesitated for a moment, then grabbed the money greedily and said, okay, you can have it. He put the clown doll in a bag and gave it to the mother. As Molly and her mother walked out of the shop, the owner called out after them. Just one thing, he said. Never leave your daughter alone with that doll. The mother and daughter didn't pay any attention to him and left, happy with their purchase. When they got home, Molly immediately rushed into the living room. The girl was overjoyed with her present and spent the rest of the day playing happily with her clown doll while her mother watched television. As the little girl played with the doll, she wondered why it was holding up 3 fingers. Later that night, when Molly went to bed, she placed the doll on the top shelf in her bedroom. Her mother kissed her goodnight and shut the bedroom door. Bright and early the next morning, the mother was cooking breakfast and called out to Molly to wake her up. When she didn't receive an answer after calling her for the 3rd time, the mother began to get worried. She decided to go upstairs and get her daughter out of bed. When she walked into Molly's bedroom, she was horrified to find her daughter lying dead on the floor in a pool of blood. Her throat had been sliced open and her eyes had been plucked out. There was a sharp knife embedded in her chest. For a few moments, Molly's mother couldn't believe what she was seeing. But when she looked down and saw the clown doll sitting beside her daughter's mutilated body, she began screaming in horror. The clown doll was holding up 4 fingers. Third story is the elevator game. The elevator game is a creepy paranormal game from Japan. They say that if you perform this ritual in an elevator, you will be able to go to another world. However, you must be careful, because there is no guarantee you will be able to get back. To play this game, you will need to find a building with an elevator and at least 10 floors. Step 1. Take the elevator on the 1st floor. The elevator must be empty and you must get in alone. Step 2. Go to the following floors in this order: 4th floor, 2nd floor, 6th floor, 2nd floor, 10th floor. If someone gets on while you are doing this, the ritual will not work. Step 3. When you arrive on the 10th floor, press the button for the 5th floor without getting out of the elevator. Step 4. When you reach the 5th floor, the doors will open and a young woman will get into the elevator with you. Do not talk to that person. Step 5. As soon as she gets on board, press the button for the 1st floor. Step 6. Instead of going down to the 1st floor, the elevator will go all the way up to the 10th floor. On the way up, you have one last chance to abort the game. If you press the button for a different floor, the ritual will not work. However, once the elevator goes past the 9th floor, there is no going back. There is only one way to be certain if the ritual has been successful or not. If you have arrived at another world, you will be the only person in it. What happens from there on is unknown. But one thing is certain: the person who came aboard on the 5th floor is not a human being. To get back to your own world, you have to perform the ritual in reverse. However, there is no guarantee it will work. Some Japanese people claim to have completed the ritual successfully. This is what they say the other world looks like. It looks the same as the building that you are from, but all the lights are off and you can only see a red sky in the distance. There are no other living things there except yourself. Some say electronics, cell phone, camera, etc., don't work there, while some say they do. Also, some people say that getting back to the real world is harder for some reason. You apparently get disorientated and forget which elevator you came on, or somehow the elevator seems to get further and further away as you walk towards it.